I guess, more often than others. One is, why am I doing this? And the other one is, how do you pronounce your name? I'll deal with the last one first. The name is spelt Holyday, but pronounced Holiday. And in England, my grandfather told me that the first holidays were holy days, and that's how we happen to have that name. The reason that I'm involved in this election, and the reason that I think a change is needed at Queen's Park, is I've been on the Amalgamated City of Toronto Council since 1998. And during that time, I've seen the financial situation go from bad to worse to desperate. And it happened because people just did not control their spending. They seemed to think that there was an endless amount of money, and they seemed to think that they could spend on whatever they, hi, Mr. Mayor, sure, on whatever they wanted and get away with it. At the time, the treasurer, and there was more than one, told them that you cannot do this. You cannot keep spending the way you're spending. They put in new taxes. The land transfer tax and the motor vehicle tax totaled almost $400 million. They spent $400 million of one-time money that was money that came from reserves or came from grants from the province of Ontario or came from the sale of assets like hydro and other things that they sold that could not be repeated. And they were balancing the operating budget by doing all these things, and they were still short after the $400 million new taxes, the $400 million of one-time money. They still could not balance that budget. And we were digging a hole so deep we'd never get out of it. Now, we've changed the direction in the last couple of years down there, thanks to the young man that just walked by. But that brings me to Queen's Park. And when I take a look at Queen's Park, I see exactly the same problem occurring there. They've got $283 billion worth of debt. Now, who's going to pay that debt? You know what? It's not going to be any of us. It's not going to be any of us. It's going to be our children or our grandchildren. That's far too much money for any of us to pay off. And there's no plan to stop it, and there's no plan to get out of it. It's doubled in the term of the Liberals, and a lot of the money has been wasted. You know that. They tell us that they can't afford public transit, but they can afford a lot of other things. And I think that they have to set their priorities, but somebody has to get the house in order down there, and it's not going to be them. Where there were a lot of good things that could have been done, and staff would have supported, but the politicians wouldn't let that happen. For instance, our labor negotiations that were so successful lately, we just took a different strategy and a little different tact, and we got favorable results. Our employees were happy, the taxpayers were certainly happy, and we saved a lot of money. But this could have been done by anybody long before we did it, but the political will to do it wasn't there. So I'm going to take my political will to Queen's Park, and I'm going to use the staff that we have down there to make sure that we do things efficiently and effectively. I think that the party system is struck the way that it is because that's not just common here in Ontario, but throughout Canada and throughout probably the main part of the world. And your party has a policy and a system, and if the members of the party aren't going to follow that, then I think the government's going to have great difficulty in trying to fulfill its own agenda. I think when they have an election like this, the parties come out and state their positions on matters, and those people who are in that party agree to those issues, and they go forward with it. Now, there might come up some time where an issue will come up that somebody feels strongly about. I think they should be allowed to express themselves, but and without being thrown out of the party or anything. But I think for the most part, they have to remember they're part of a team. When I hear these kind of things, and there's cutbacks in the health care program, and people can't get the service that they were normally getting, it really makes me wonder whatever happened to that $900 a year that they taxed us for health care when they said they weren't going to raise taxes. And the very first thing they did was to slap that health tax on us, and then they still can't provide the services. No doubt about it, the problem was building the thing in the first place. But I think another mistake was made, and that's when they tore down the old coal plant. And this was in the Toronto Sun. Christina Blizzard, who's here tonight, wrote this in there just not too long ago, that they should have taken a look at what they were going to replace that with before they ever tore it down. And they had the site right there. The people in the area who didn't want the coal plant probably would have been happier to have a gas plant than a coal plant. It would have been a huge improvement for everybody, and it probably could have gone down there on the lake, not near anybody's house, and been a deal completed. But instead they were in such a rush to tear the coal plants down without a complete plan that we got ourselves into this mess. And look at what it's cost us now. And you know what? One of the reasons we're having this election right now is because there's another report coming out in September, I believe, about the cost of taking the Oakville plant out of there, which is far higher than they've ever told us so far. Problems in the difficulties that the Liberals have had governing in the last little while. But it brings me to the question, and I'd like him to pass this back on to his NDP friends at Queen's Park. Why are you propping them up? Why don't you just pull the plug on them? We could have saved all this money over by-elections and had the out-and-out election that we all know we need and deserve to clear the air once and for all. If you want to vote Liberal, what you're doing is condoning what's gone on. I don't think anybody really is happy with what's going on. And I know that there's a lot of true Liberals who are going to vote Liberal no matter what. But I think you better rethink that. If you want to send a message to them without throwing them out of office, you can send the message loud and clear right here in Etobicoke-Lakeshore by voting for Doug Holyday. And they will get the message that you don't like what they've done. And I know, going to the doors, that there's a lot of people that are very unhappy with the actions of the province of Ontario in its own finances. And I think you're going to find out when we get to the polls what the people really think. But I think it's a good way to send a message to them. As I said, if you're Liberal, it does not kick them out of office, but it sure lets them know that you're not happy with what they've done.